Right, good morning. I'm calling the February 13th, Public Health and Safety Committee meeting to order. This is our first meeting of the year, so I'll just do introductions. Jane Laura, Chair, Vice Chair Cindy Rickard, and then we're welcoming a new incoming council member, Jill Stratton. It's great to have you join the committee. And Mayor Dana Edwards, and he's joining our committee for the time too. And Chief John Strang and Director Jeff Alden and Manager Megan Dobbs. So other than approving the minutes, we have just one other action item, and then we have one discussion item. So the first action item is the approval of the minutes for the December 12th meeting. So, second.
I second if I wasn't here.
Oh, right, you can abstain.
I'll abstain.
All in favor? That's 2 minutes are approved. And now we'll move on to our second item of business, which is the recommendation on the resolution for 2026-04 Police Advisory Committee. Can I get a motion for that?
I would you want me to approve or discuss?
Moving to recommend or
Move to recommend.
okay. Thank you. And so I'll turn this over to Dr. Ballard.
Right, so the Police Advisory Committee was originally adopted by resolution in 2022. It was resolution 2022-12 to establish the Police Advisory Committee. But then in December of 2024, Council adopted a charge to the PAC, which did modify the membership roles in terms of the number of members that were permitted or requested to be on the committee, as well as some requirements for the makeup of the committee itself. So we previously had some other requirements for membership. So those were reduced just to increase the membership kind of opportunities there. What we're doing here is just a cleanup effort for the resolution, just to combine those things into one, because the original resolution carries the weight of a resolution. The charge does not. The charge is just kind of a policy document. So what we wanted to do was, as we're moving forward with our kind of updates to our boards and commissions, kind of through the F&A committee, we just wanted to make sure that this was all consolidated into one document. So this is a resolution that combines essentially the origin resolution plus the changes to the membership in one updated resolution. So this resolution now effectively supersedes the original one, in that it is the most true and accurate as to the purpose, the membership, and the duties of the PAC. So now we just have a consolidated document, and it does carry the weight of a resolution moving forward.
Any discussion? And I'll just note that the PAC now has 4 members. John Gonzalez is chair, and Dennis Brogan is vice chair. Phoebe Skeen is secretary, and Kate Farnwell is a member. And they did meet on February 5th, and they advised on the ICE resolution. So thanking our volunteers who stepped forward in that role. And if there's no more comments from the committee, I will open it up to public comment on this item, this action item.
A question I have is just make sure from our police leadership how this aligns with how the advisory committee kind of aligns with what the police needs are within the community. And is that an appropriate time to ask this? Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any things in here that seem like council should be rethinking?
No, I don't think there's anything that has to be, include, or anything additional that needs to be included in there. So it's definitely very much the Police Advisory Committee is that conduit for the community to reach out and express concerns that they might not feel comfortable bringing directly to the police department, and allows us to kind of have that two-way communication. So as issues present, I'm sure that they are, well equipped to handle them. We're very fortunate for the caliber of people that we have on the committee.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a really important committee to have, just to serve as that community liaison between citizens and employees. And as community issues arise as well, they can advise on those, make recommendations, on behalf of the community.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll open it up to public comment. Are there any public comments on this particular action item, in the room? Is there anyone online?
No.
So no public comment. I'll take a vote on this. All in favor? 8-0, and motion passes. So next up, we have our first discussion item, which is the vegetation maintenance program. Nadia, I'll turn this over to you again.
Sure. So we sent out kind of heads up letters in the tax bills just to notify residents that we were going to be moving forward with a vegetation maintenance program this year. We do enforce our codes every year, but this year is just, we're looking to kind of create a more focused effort on addressing the concerns that we've heard from the community members regarding public walkways primarily, and then safety, sight distance at intersections. So we are a small, dense borough, and we have a lot of mature vegetation. We do appreciate having all of that canopy cover and the trees and the bushes and the flowers and everything, and it's lovely, but we do want to make sure that we maintain passable walkways, the full width of the sidewalk for everybody to access. And then the corner site triangles, if you have overgrown vegetation, it can cause problems for drivers not being able to see other cars and other pedestrians that might be in the walkway. So this is purely, we're approaching it from a safety perspective. And just, again, one of the main things that we love in the borough is our walkability. And this is just to help ensure that we maintain high levels of walkability and safety around town. So the initial letter that we included in the tax bills was a very cost-efficient way for us to notify as many residents as possible. Since the bills were going out anyway, we were able to tuck that in. We were notified that there was a small error on the diagram that we had included, so that has been corrected. The language, though, on the one side is all true and correct. It is just the ordinance itself. So we're going to be pursuing additional efforts over the next couple of months prior to us doing any enforcement, to continue to get the word out to residents, to provide some education, some training, some partnerships with our Shade Tree Commission to work on some efforts to, again, just do outreach and make sure that everyone understands what we're asking for. We are not looking to be punitive with this. This is really primarily an educational thing, first and foremost. And then for those folks who need, extra assistance, we will, like I said, be providing resources on the website and other opportunities to kind of learn about how to maintain things properly. And then if there's an opportunity for us to provide assistance, we'll see, what we can do to the greatest extent possible. We are not looking, though, to actually start enforcement until later in the growing season. So we're targeting towards mid to late June in terms of when we're actually going to go out and start enforcing this and sending letters. And as with any code enforcement, our first effort is not to go right to citation for this particular matter. We did do that for the shoveling of the sidewalks, but for this particular matter, this is not going to be an immediate citation. So folks will receive a notice letter to provide them again with additional education. So we're hoping that folks take care of the vegetation kind of throughout the growing season. But if there's still an issue with access, overgrown vegetation, then we will provide that notice letter. We will give reasonable time for folks to then address that. And again, we'll provide resources, QR codes, website resources. We're gonna be building out this program and then give them reasonable time to fix it. If after that time they do not fix it, then yes, we will move forward with citations. But that really is a undesirable outcome. We don't want to have to get to that point, but we do just want to make sure, again, that this is kind of first and foremost in people's minds as we head into the growing season for this year.
I'll just say, it's one of the most common things I've heard from the community in terms of sidewalk access.
Yes.
And brush growing over into the sidewalk. So if you're swamped with strollers, having to go out into the road, people with mobility issues, seniors, and it really is a public safety issue.
Yes.
And I know in terms of the overgrown trees over that causes an issue for the plow trucks and emergency vehicles and things like that, and causes damage to the trees, so.
Right, and the trash trucks too, so it's, you know, trees overgrowing. So trees growing low into the roadway, trucks will hit it, they'll break the limbs, it's bad for the tree, it's bad for the trucks, bad for public safety. And yeah, the walkability issue is our number one complaint that we get throughout the entire growing season, so this is to address that.
And from a transportation perspective, I think it's one of the things that is identified as biggest bang for the buck in terms of what we can do. We would also improve the sight lines at the intersection.
Yeah.
Because that's usually where most of the conflicts occur.
Right.
That's huge. So thank you for giving question. Yeah.
So I'm actually thinking of my next door neighbor. I'm looking at 44/6-A B that says hedges and shrubs, other similar vegetation adjacent to a sidewalk within the right of way shall be maintained at a height not to exceed 4 feet.
Mhm.
If that is not on a corner, does it have to be 4 feet in height? I'm just thinking of my neighborhood. We're in a terrible street, it's cut through street. He's got this probably 10 or 12-foot wall of bush
Mhm.
that really reduces noise, it reduces the car traffic. Are there waiver? I mean, they've been there for 25 years. We've been in the borough. It's been a 10-foot high hedge. I mean, would we make him cut that to 4 feet?
That's a really good question. I don't want to make a determination
Yeah.
on the fly without seeing it and referencing the code, and I'm not the code enforcement officer, but
Right.
that does raise a good question. You know, if it's a privacy hedge along a property that isn't a corner property, so it doesn't cause sightline issues.
Yeah.
I believe the way that the code is written, that would be in violation of the code. However, you know, that's something that I'm sure that impacts a number of people in the borough. And frankly, when we have limited staff, limited time, limited resources, these are not the main citations that we would be targeting unless those hedges were also growing into,
Right.
because there's a height and then there's
Right.
growing into. So if they're set back and they're not in the sidewalk and they're just tall, I think that is a reasonable thing for us to discuss with our code enforcement team to identify where our priorities lie. And then, you know, see how we can best relay information to those residents who might have those if we do decide to not pursue enforcement related to that particular situation.
So it sounds like this code is then aimed at safety issues.
It's 100% aimed at safety issues. Absolutely. Yes. And again, it's education and outreach and then notice and enforcement as a last measure.
As
So
opposed to HOA gardening rules. It's
right.
safety.
So it's definitely about safety. It's definitely about making sure that folks can walk. We have so many dog walkers, we have so many kids and strollers and people of all ages. And so we just need to be able to have that sidewalk safety. And especially the corners and the intersections. So that's really where the main priority will lie. But that's a good point. We'll certainly consider that as we work on you know, resources as we implement this program.
Thanks.
I have a related question. If thinking about what you just raised, Cindy, in this conversation, feels to me like it would make more sense to change the code, the ordinance, than to pick and choose when we enforce the written ordinance. I feel like it could lead to a sense of arbitrariness. So, you know, my thought is if we'd like to, if what we envision is that the 4-foot height would be on shrubbery in the right of way, the 4-foot height would be enforced, you know, when it obstructs the line of sight for driving, then I would suggest that we consider changing the code to say that rather than to kind of have our zoning officer pick and choose where and when we enforce it. Because that as written now, it's all shrubbery in the right of way over 4 feet. So I worry about arbitrariness.
And I do, I mean, Chief, if I can kick this over to you, because typically these height restrictions are also put in place as a measure of public safety in that it allows then, you know, if police or emergency services need to be able to have visual sight of the property, it does enable that. So it's one of those, you know, bad things happen behind hedges. That's not a thing that anybody says, but but I do believe that the intent, you know, the reason why, because this is somewhat typical of ordinances of this kind. And in the past, I've been informed that that is the purpose of them. So that, would be a conversation as well, if that's something that we feel.
Bill Henderson talked about this years ago.
Yeah, so
Not being well timed out.
like if you can't find a house because it's a 10-foot hedgerow and you don't see the house number and you
Yeah.
can't identify the property, it could impede emergency services.
Mhm.
So that's where the safety rationale comes
Yeah,
into
yeah.
play when it relates to the height of vegetation.
Got it. Thank you.
So I would hope that at the moment we would land on, the ordinance is the ordinance. And, there's a safety issue on, line of sight for drivers. And then there's an issue of line of sight for, ambulance, police and others. And so, I would hope at the moment we're not making a decision about enforcing on quarters, but not on others, or are we leaning
There-
one way or the other?
Well, there's definitely language that's specific to corner properties.
Mhm.
So we have that to lean on, but like I said, we'll take another look at the language and, make sure that we're implementing this in a fair and reasonable manner.
Thank you. Thanks.
Question on this one, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay. Is the 4 feet? So some properties are sort of elevated from the street. Is the 4 feet, like, let's say it's 2 feet off the ground, does that mean you can have a 2-foot hedge, or does that mean you get a net 6-foot hedge?
Also a good question. I'd have to take a look at the code to see how it's drafted. I don't know that it actually defines that. I believe it just says, and I'm going off of memory now, but 4 feet from the sidewalk, so it would be whatever the sidewalk height is. So if you have a berm or a retaining wall, then the shrubs themselves could be, say it's a 2-foot retaining wall and a 2-foot shrub, that meets the 4 foot, because it's 4 foot from the sidewalk. And again, going back to if you're on the sidewalk, it's a sightline thing that's at play here. So it's not necessarily the hedges are 4 feet, but hedges cannot exceed 4 feet from the height of the sidewalk.
That's what it actually is.
Yeah,
If this 446-8D is in dog, might need a little bit of a massage and hit the 2 points. I heard, but
Yeah, I would actually suggest, it costs money to change an ordinance, and then I would think maybe we just kind of depend on the discretion of the office, so we figure out what we need. And then see, do we need to actually make legal
Yeah,
changes?
so we do actually have to make an amendment to the ordinance because we did find that there is one clause in here that says that the minimum height clearance is 9 feet and really it should be 8 feet. So we have two conflicting sections in
So
the
we do
code. So
update pay anyway.
it's a
Okay.
very, very small thing. We were thinking that we would just lump that in with another ordinance amendment that we are working on related to the parking. But if we have more substantive changes to this section specifically, then it might warrant its own ordinance amendment to address all of these kind of outstanding questions as we look into implementing this, if this is going to be something. I do also want to caution against making changes just in an ad hoc manner, like we need to make the changes because this is what we need from a long-term perspective. So we don't want to be reactionary with our ordinances. We want to be mindful and considerate as to what we actually need now and in the future.
Agreed.
So what are the next steps in terms of the community, getting notifications or?
Yeah, so at this point, our plan, so we did meet with the Shade Tree Commission recently to discuss some of the concerns related to pruning trees. So we are working in-house. Jeff and his team are professional landscapers, so we're relying on their input. We will work with the Shade Tree Commission just to, again, come up with some language about more specifics. We were going to come up with a fun little video series. So as we start seeing some growth and as soon as the snow kind of goes away, we were going to do some like TikTok style videos, be really fun with it. Dana, if you want to help with that, our Instagram star over here. So just like something to try to be fun and engaging and kind of be visual with it to show. So we actually have like a measurement tool so that we can go out and show people videos and photographs of like, this is what we're looking for, to be as clear and specific as what that is. Best practices for when to prune, how to prune, what sort of, don't hack at your tree with a dull blade. use proper tools, use sanitation so you don't, transmit diseases to your trees, things like that. So we're just going to try to provide that education through our website, newsletter, social media, and just get the word out as much as we can that way. And then that's going to be kind of the main push. And then we'll announce when we will be coming out to actually do the inspection. And then again, like I said, it'll be a couple weeks to kind of go through and do the full inspection. And then the notices for anybody who is non-compliant, we'll give them, some period of time to come into compliance. And then by citations will be filed for anybody who doesn't come into compliance. So we'd be looking at that point, if we start the program in June, hopefully we'll be done with the inspections by maybe July. Notices of non-compliance go out. So then we're looking at August, and then citations would be later August for any non-compliant properties.
That sounds like a really good opportunity to just also give Shade Tree Commission's input on the education and outreach.
Absolutely.
May I say something? Sure. My name is Carson Clark. I own a property at 113 Woodside Avenue. What's the other thing I'm supposed to say? I've lived in Arbor since 1990. I've served on the Shade Tree Commission for 9 years. And I just wanted to add a little positivity because, number one, you don't have to make TikToks because Pennsylvania Horticultural Society, Arbor Day, I know a million sources about safe pruning, so I'm really happy to do that.
Great.
But the other thing is, I walk around. You probably see me because I'm always walking around and I, checking on trees and all that. I know every single block of this borough like the back of my hand. And in my head, as you're talking, I'm like, oh yeah, that spot, that. Like I even can, it's not a huge problem. I think that the vast majority of people really are compliant and care about the safety. Most of them have pushed baby strollers themselves. I know I did. I had a twin baby stroller. But anyway, I just want to add a little levity to it because, there are definitely spots in Norbert that are like, that's a problem. But it's not a terrible problem. I think it's something that really can be managed without too much awfulness or difficulty because for the most part, like if you think it's South Side, even especially on the South Side, most of those things are really clear during 6 o'clock. So I just wanted to add a little, it's not a terrible thing. Most people are really doing their best to make their front walkway, safe. And also, yes, the Shade Tree Chat we have resources on safe pruning and how to prune and how to maintain your trees. So
Yeah, if you could
that's
send those resources.
Sure.
That would be kind of.
Sure. Send it to Eugene. Okay. And then if there's something you want another topic on, I could probably do the research to find those.
Okay.
I just wanted to amplify the positivity. I agree. I think that, and Jean, as you were saying, I think this will substantially improve safety and create happiness among people who are forced to use the street in certain situations when they really want to use the sidewalk, kids who rely on wheels, strollers, train bikes, people using walkers, canes, wheelchairs, who, opening up the sidewalks for everybody, I think is going to be a tremendous crowd pleaser. Even though, as you say, it's a small number of properties, it has a substantial impact and will increase happiness.
Thank you. If there's no other comments, I do think we have to move on. So next up is snow removal update. So before I turn it over to your Public Works and the Police Department for the public safety update regarding the snow removal, I do want to say, just on behalf of the committee and on behalf of Borough Council and their entire community, I want to publicly thank our Public Works Department and our Police Department and their staff for their extraordinary work that they've done throughout the winter season to keep members safe. And it's been extremely challenging in terms of the conditions that we've had to endure. So we're very thankful. And I'll just note that we're a really small borough with a very lean team. And that means that when these major storms hit, it's not some large operation that's going out and plowing the streets. It's really a handful of dedicated team members who are going out there, working overnight, working weekends, and sacrificing time away from their family to make sure their streets are safe and passable, and for the Arbor families. And that commitment needs to be recognized. So I just wanted to do that. And in light of this, I also want to say, like, I was really discouraged to learn that the members of our staff were on the receiving end of a lot of abuse from frustrated residents about the snow removal. So there's a really clear distinction between constructive feedback and which is always welcome, and directing anger or personal attacks to our public servants. That should never be tolerated. I just wanted to put that out there. And I also have the privilege of working closely with the staff, and I know how hard they work. I know how much they care. I know how much pride they take in their work. So, and also with that, when you hear that deeply, I know that you also take that kind of feedback very personally. So I do want to take note of that. And then I think it's important for our residents to understand that these are often thankless jobs, but it's essential to make sure that their emergency vehicles can go on our roads, that our essential workers can, whether they're first responders or doctors or nurses, that they can move safely through the borough and get to their jobs. And our whole community can function during all of these difficult conditions. So, and this is just one sliver of what our public servants do for our community. And so we're incredibly lucky that we have the team that we have. And in my view, I do think that our public works department and our staff and our police department is one of the best in the area. And in large part due to the leadership and the commitment from our manager, Maggie Dobbs, our director, Jeff Eldon, and Chief John Strain. And so to everyone who's been working around the clock through this very hard season, thank you, and your efforts are greatly appreciated. And I'm also happy to put this message out in the newsletter if necessary, as we think it's important for everyone to hear.
Thank you, Jean. We're appreciative of that.
Yeah.
And thank you to Jeff and John for all of their team's efforts as well. They're out there on the streets doing the work. So
So with that, I'll turn it over to Chief Strain to provide an update just on the enforcement side of things for the
Just to kind of put it in context for enforcement, generally there's two types of violations that we're looking for. One is vehicle parked in the snow zone, 1 hour after the start of snowfall, and the second one's going to be for sidewalks not being cleared after the storm. Looking at our numbers, last year in January with a snowfall, and we issued 70 parking tickets for the violation of the snow zone. This year with the January storm, we issued 12. So we've had a huge improvement in the number of violations that we're seeing. With regards to the sidewalks, this was something new that we're really, not new, a requirement forever, but something that we're really pushing. The first snowfall this January that we sent out 86 warnings, and the second snowfall, which came about a week later, we ended up with 34 citations. So we saw a marked improvement there in the residents clearing their sidewalks and making passable for pedestrians. So
That's great progress.
Yes.
And I think it is an important education element to have those citations in the warning. Any questions or comments from the committee? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chief Strain. So, and then I'll turn it over to Public Works Director, Jeff Eldon, for the general update on the snow removal.
I'll keep it brief because I can talk for probably the rest of the weekend about this. This was a very unique storm that we faced. The crew came in at 4 a.m. and we worked straight through till 11 p.m. Before guys really laid down take a break. You know, we received about 9.5 inches of snow. About 0.02, 0.03 inches of ice, you know, buildup. Over the course of 11 or 12 days that we were working, moving, trucking snow, you know, we logged around on 530 hours. You know, we had our tree contractor here Sunday night as soon as the storm stopped to begin trucking snow from downtown. They brought out about 25 triaxles worth of snow from downtown at 10 p.m. on Sunday night. They went through till 6 a.m. Monday morning. That was at a cost of, you know, $4,800. Overall labor, you know, was $12,092. Overtime was just shy of $2,200. None of this includes my time. If that were to be factored in, you know, everything for labor, we would be at $21,235. So between our tree contractor here to haul snow, you know, food, fuel, supplies, salt, you know, the storm cost the borough, you know, $29,123. Super cold event, you know, as most folks, you know, some may not, you know, road salt typically is effective to about 20 degrees. Anything lower than that, it really starts to struggle. So we were pre-treating our road salt, you know, with calcium, which will allow the road salt to be effective to about negative 15 degrees, which when I was here last Sunday, the wind chill was negative 14. So, you know, we're thankful that we have that up on the shelf so we can get roads open. You know, we went through about 50 or 60 gallons of calcium, about 25 tons of road salt over those 12 days, you know, to get roads open. You know, we worked around the clock, split shifts, you know, folks were coming in at 11 p.m., working till 7, you know, second crew, you know, second two guys were coming in at 6 to 3, just to keep moving, you know, just to, you know, use our equipment as wisely and efficiently as we could, you know, to clear the most amount of snow. You know, anyone who's driven down Haverford, you know, has seen our immense pile from the building to the tunnel. You know, there's quite a pile down on Foxhall. You know, there's a pile in our parking lot here. You know, we have been putting snow everywhere we can outside of bringing it home with us. So, yeah, very, very proud of, you know, the crew, you know, the dedication that they have. You know, I say it a lot to the guys that we may not have as much as other townships do, but we will outwork anyone you put in front of us. You know, we use our equipment, you know, as wisely as we can. And, you know, I also think it's important to note, you know, that we, again, you know, worked through another overnight storm, another long duration, you know, with no property damage, no workman comp claims, no injuries, no nothing.
And you've been away from your family, spotted this weekend?
One more weekend storm, you all might be attending my funeral. So, my wife may.
Yeah. We keep thanking you. I want to send thank yous to all the families that are stuck 6 weeks in a row.
Yeah, it's kind of you know, it's nice to see when you walk through the shop and all the guys are on FaceTime, you know, with their wife for the girlfriend. It's kind of, yeah, that's just how it is, you know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just want to add my own thanks and also really acknowledge how unusual this storm was. I think it was 2016, we had a similar amount of snow. But the temperatures went up immediately afterwards to 40-45 degrees. And so it's been decades, if ever, since we've had a snow like this much with this much cold, where things didn't melt. And we're not Buffalo, New York, where this happens more frequently, and you know they're staffed and have the equipment to meet that because it happens more regularly. It hasn't happened here, and a huge thank you for the tremendous effort to address this, you know, once in a multi-decade storm in the successful way you did. And the team, thank you.
And do you think that the equipment we have is sufficient to cover snow removal? I know this was kind of an exceptional year, and we don't want to, spend money on something for like the worst case scenario necessarily, but.
Yeah, which I think all of council knows how I operate. You know, I really struggle with proposing equipment purposes if we can't use it for more than one thing.
Right.
So, I am putting together an equipment package, that, will just better suit our needs, for more standard snowfalls. Reduce hours, get the crew home sooner, and ultimately just serve, the borough in a more efficient manner.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the committee?
I will just add as well, so in addition to Jeff putting together an equipment package, Chief and Jeff and I are also going to be working on an actual snow response plan. So we have that kind of just internally with our institutional knowledge, but putting something more in writing that will be available for reference. We'll have it on the website so folks can reference it as well, with just information, kind of priorities, like this is what we do, this is what we don't do, this is kind of our phase of things, and just kind of have a policy like that in writing. So we're going to be working on that as well through the next couple of months, and have that prepared and before you for review and consideration later this year.
Okay, great, thank you. There's no other comments on that. I'll move on to the next discussion item, which is the Montgomery Avenue corridor study. And that is in the packet as well. That is the presentation that was shown earlier in February. Maggie, do you want to give an overview?
Sure. So we had our first public meeting in conjunction with Lower Merion Township on the 3rd of February, so last Tuesday. So it was held at the Lower Merion Township building. Their engineers who are working on this plan gave an overview of all of their data analysis, which is what is in the packets. So the project itself is taking a look at, I believe it's 31 intersections over a 7-mile stretch on Montgomery Avenue. So our portion here in Narberth is kind of central to that. We are looking at getting feedback from folks right now. So we are in the kind of public feedback phase. So the initial efforts have been, analyzing all of the intersections, analyzing crash data, analyzing just like traffic speeds. So all of that has been kind of on the engineer side. So that information is available in the presentation, which I think is really helpful. The presentation also kind of reviewed some of the overarching considerations that are being looked at as part of the study. So in addition to travel lanes, turning movements, roadway safety, also looking at some roadside improvements. So things like crosswalks, the push buttons, street lighting, things like that. So we will be looking at receiving a robust kind of set of recommendations out of this. But at this stage in the process, we are looking for public feedback on both the data analysis and then also just people's honestly anecdotal information. We all live here, we all drive this road, we know what the problem areas are. I'm sure all of us have stories about near misses, either as a pedestrian or in a vehicle. We're all trying to make these tight turns. We all have been, behind the car, been that car, waiting to turn left. So we're just gathering information. So we want to hear from people what your concerns are, what you see are, what you see as challenges, what is working, like what might actually be working well for you. So there is a survey that has been put together. It is available online. So you can take the online survey directly. You can also print the PDF, which is available online. If you would prefer to handwrite that out, you can drop that off either at the Lower Merion Township building or here at the Narberth Borough Hall. And we do also have hard copies available for pickup in our office, as does Lower Merion. So the deadline for that survey is going to be the end of the month. So I believe it's February 24th is the deadline for the survey. So if you haven't taken it yet, please do so. We've been advertising for that. And then the team will be pulling that information together, analyzing all of the responses, and then pulling together recommendations. And then the next step in the process will be another public engagement session to review some of those initial implementation recommendations. And there'll be additional opportunities for public feedback.
Thank you.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, because I had to miss this meeting. John, this is a question for you. I was shocked to see, so those crash data are just for if a car got towed or somebody got an injury. So these data are really,
No, there's both in there.
is there? Because I see crash analysis definition that a reportable crash is only,
But if you, so you gotta watch their charting there a little bit.
okay,
There's
so
also,
down the,
there's documented crashes that are not reportable. So they have.
right, so we're not collecting fender benders.
No, so on, unfortunately, they don't have page numbers on these, but the
Okay.
one that's titled crash analysis by year, if you notice, they'll put non-reportable crashes and total reportable crashes. So they are collecting data on both,
Okay.
and it's kind of interspersed throughout the whole report what it is.
Oh, okay, so even all crashes that, well, no, all crashes in my definition, it's reportable because it had an injury or needed a tow.
So that's what the definition says, but that contradicts what they have down on that
That's my
slide.
question. Yeah,
Yeah, crash
Okay.
analysis by year slide.
got it, okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'll just note that like they did have 28 crashes documented that involved pedestrians on Montgomery Avenue. And 6 that involved bicyclists. And I know recently a 79-year-old woman, Roberta Fallon, she was struck on Montgomery Avenue while she was crossing the street. And this was Old Lancaster, that intersection.
Got
By Heine.
Yeah.
And so it's definitely an issue. And like Maggie said, I think it's important for everyone to share their stories, their personal stories of what they're experiencing on Montgomery Avenue. And that survey is on the Narberth Borough website.
It is, yes, and we've been posting it in the newsletter as well, and we'll continue posting about it for the next couple of weeks until the survey closes.
Sure.
Megan, just wanted to clarify, you, many times as you're reporting it, you use the pronoun we. Who is the we who's analyzing? I don't know, is it a Lower Merion and Narberth leadership or?
So, yes, good question. So in terms of the we, I use the collective we, but we, the borough are not actively doing the research and analysis. So this is Lower Merion, using their township engineer, who also happens to be Pannoni. So we have Pannoni, they have Pannoni. They have a different team from Pannoni, but it's the township engineers who are doing the analysis.
Thank you.
And then in terms of we borough staff are included in discussions about the process and moving forward with it. But it is the township engineers who are doing the work. Staff are involved in the process of it. And then, like I was saying, this is the third was the first public meeting kind of looking at this. So we borough staff have been involved in kind of the preliminary review of the information that Lower Merion has invited us to, since we are a joint grant applicant. This is a federal application, Safe Streets for All. So it is a grant funded analysis.
So yes, so Narberth Borough did financially contribute to that grant match for the Safe Streets for All.
Thank you. I didn't mean to nitpick. I was just curious. And in terms of like, how are the decisions made? Is it Pannoni making recommendations and others saying we agree with this, or do we even know that yet?
So again, there's been preliminary discussions, but the bulk of the recommendations won't be finalized until feedback is received by the community. So Pannoni engineers are looking at it from the perspective of, so we have the data from everything, and then we have what's called levels of service in traffic engineering. So you always want to hit a certain level of service, and that has to do with, how many cycles do you need to sit through at a light? What are the kind of turning movements? Looking at safe sight distances. One of the things that they pointed out in the data analysis, which you might have seen, is that if you're driving in the right lane, either direction, and there's a vehicle that's stopped to turn left, you can't actually see then kind of across those lanes. So just looking at road profiles and how those sightlines can be improved. So they do have some preliminary recommendations from that, but that is just one component of the overall recommendation. So what we do expect is that the recommendations will be driven by the engineering to ensure that we have those quality levels of service that we're looking for along the corridor. And then those will be then further refined by the public feedback in terms of, priority areas where the main concerns actually are, because the engineering may say one thing, but then all of the anecdotes from the public feedback may actually say, that's not a problem for us, but something else is that wouldn't be evident through the engineering analysis.
Oh, I'm sorry, there was such great detail and information. After all that's said and done, who are the deciders? Who decides we're going to make changes at this intersection? Is that Lower Merion? Is that
Well,
us in Lower Merion? Or-
so the end result of this grant process will be then the recommendations for implementation for the changes. So they'll the engineers will draft then the document with the proposed recommendations. There'll be public feedback opportunities on that. So it will be somewhat collective, but so once all the recommendations are finalized, that is just a design document, and it's not even fully engineered design for each of the intersections. So it's going to be recommendations. But then what will happen is that to actually then implement those recommendations, the township does own the roadway. So at that point, the borough don't have kind of that implementation step, but then the township would have to allocate money to then do the final design on that on whatever intersection or intersections they want. And then they would spend the money to then build the improvements.
Thanks for that. That's very, very helpful.
Maggie, quick, FYI, this QR code link is broken. I know it's not our link, but.
On the survey,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, the survey that links to the
the QR code that links to the survey, the link is broken.
okay, all right.
Again, not our survey, not our link, but before we put it in.
Presentation.
Yeah,
Oh, in the presentation it's
Yeah.
broken? Okay, I'll let them know.
those people aren't.
I think that, yeah, I think that
When we send it out, I just want to make sure that we check that link.
because the QR code to the survey was used during the presentation, so I wonder if,
Here's one. Okay, because I think folks will probably, most folks will fill it out electronically versus printing out a hard copy and bringing it in. So we have the updated live link, that may be helpful.
I know, the borough website that has all of this information, it has the correct.
That's still live, okay. Check that.
I don't want to speak out of turn, Cindy, but I linked from the newsletter last week and
And the word, okay,
I didn't use QR code, it said, fill out the survey here.
okay,
So I
perfect.
clicked on that
Mhm.
and completed it.
Okay, if there's no other discussion on that, we'll move on to the next item, which is pedestrian bike accessibility. I don't think we have an update for the active transportation plan.
No.
So that's still in the process of being finalized. But we do hope to be moving forward with whatever comes out of that, hopefully with year end next year. And then we'll move on to committee reports. We'll start with the Shade Tree Commission. We have Tina Hess and Marcy Clark here from the Shade Tree Commission.
So our Shade Tree Commission met, our monthly meeting was February 3rd. And that day we heard from the borough that it's been determined that the borough cannot plant anywhere other than the right of way. So we have suspended the planting that we usually have in the spring. And if we plant a tree or two, it wouldn't involve the borough at all, we'll just do it as tree tenders ourselves. And also the need for the ordinance to be updated. So I just wanted to give everybody a perspective because I think it's helpful. So for the last 10 years, we've been planting actively in the borough. We've planted about 480 trees in that time. For the most part, most of the time, we planted only in the right of way and we planted we asked people to pay for the trees. That was a little awkward because a lot of people didn't pay for the trees, but when Samantha Bryant was borough manager, she charged us with adhering to the requirements to be Tree City USA. Really for things, it's mostly for real estate values because communities with trees have higher real estate values. Anyway, so we went through all of this and one of the requirements of the application was that the municipality spend $2 per resident on their tree program. And the Arbor Day Foundation has very specific requirements. So we started following that and the borough started paying for the trees. So this is probably 5 years ago, I think 22. And then 2 or 3 years ago, the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society, who in the past would only provide us trees if we planted in the right of way. Pennsylvania Horticultural Society decided that any tree planted anywhere in a community benefits the community. So they encouraged us to plant in side yards, backyards, so we were following that. The borough has determined that does not align with our Shade Tree Commission, whatever it's called, ordinance. So I just also wanted to bring up the fact that we worked on an ordinance in 2021 and 2022. We rewrote the whole thing and it was passed by the solicitor and passed by this committee or whatever committee we were under at that time.
That was land development, so that wasn't the Shade Tree ordinance.
I can send you a copy of it if you want.
Okay, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you send us a copy? Because that's what I heard as well, that it
Yeah.
was for Saldo.
Yeah, it's the
not-
Saldo.
That's
That's two different things.
Okay, so we didn't do that. We worked on some ordinance that
Yeah.
people asked us to work on regarding trees. And it went that far, but I guess I just want to address the concern that it's a whole lot of work to get this started because we did spend quite a bit of work on that. So that's where the Shade Tree Commission stands. Is there anything else we should say about that? I mean, it's kind of an abrupt, but
Yeah.
you know, our ordering deadline is February. We find out in January what trees are available. We order in February for the April date. So February 3rd was our last meeting before we had to put in our tree order. But we just won't plant in the spring.
Right, and I guess from my perspective, we just would like some idea of what is it, whether there's a financial issue, like if we were to charge homeowners for the trees rather than offering them for free, would that be okay?
Yeah, we discussed that.
Yeah,
Can
we
people-
discussed all this.
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
a really solid solution, quite honestly.
Oh, okay.
I think. Fungi is
I don't know what that
next week
is,
to
so.
talk about it. I think everyone is aware that we need to update our shade tree ordinance. That was the Saldo.
Okay.
So I think I don't want to speak for Eugene, but
Yeah, I mean, also.
we have a good solution.
And then the shade tree ordinance is going to be discussed in, a different meeting, FNA.
So we're just on hold, basically.
Yeah, but it does seem like we do have like a good plan
Okay.
about moving forward and continuing to.
Okay, I don't know what that plan is, so if someone can fill me in,
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm having Carson over there.
And then if there's any questions from the committee?
No, thank you.
Environmental Advisory Committee, we do have, just a quick update, that community choice aggregation, that appeal was officially filed. For the permission to be a PUC, so tackle that in another way. And then, they also, said they could support like the Willow ordinance that will be advertised soon. They can support the educational outreach for that to the community, so, Maggie, you and I can talk about how that might work.
Yeah, so right, so council had decided to hold off on adopting that ordinance until we saw how it's been played out in Lower Merion. I did speak with our solicitor on Wednesday, and he has confirmed that there has been no challenges to the Lower Merion ordinance as of this time. So then it's, up to council if you want to then proceed with our ordinance amendments. And then, yes, kind of piggybacking off of that would be the educational component of it.
Are we okay moving forward? Yeah, I don't think that was an action item, but I think
Yeah,
there's
just as an
general
update.
support, yeah. Okay. And then, police advisory committee that was covered earlier in the agenda. We'll move on to departmental reports. The fire company report is in the packet. And, police report, Chief String.
Just in addition to what's in the packet, everyone should have gotten a copy of the Price Avenue traffic study that we recently conducted. That was based on residents' concerns over speeding. Real quick high level view, 4 weeks, 27,000 cars, both east and westbound on the roadway. Eastbound speed average was 16 miles an hour, westbound was 17. Of 27,000 movements, 2 were enforceable speeding violations. So,
How many enforceable?
2.
2. And that means over 35?
Yes.
Chief, I missed, I didn't listen quickly enough. Which
Sorry.
street?
Price.
Thank
Total
you.
block price, yeah.
Total block price.
Yeah, the 85th percentile speeds came in at like 21.9 and 22.3. So, well within the expected range for the roadway.
I have to say, that seems, wait, did you say the 80th percentile speed?
85th percentile speeds, yeah, 21 and 22.
I feel like for that street, it does seem fast. I know it's not enforceable, but.
21, it feels fast.
Yeah.
You can't enforce under.
Yeah, I realize.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I think an important question on some of the streets in Narberth that are kind of tightly packed like that is, even though there may not be speeding, they still feel unsafe. And is there a different way that municipalities think about that? I don't have enough experience to know the answer, but a lot of kids narrow a street at places, parking on both sides, poor visibility. I don't think it's a police issue,
Yeah.
but it may be some other way of thinking about.
Yeah.
The
Gene's whole, I mean,
Yeah.
we'll have to share you all that stuff. Gene spent a year putting together a packet on just that.
Yeah. And so sometimes there's not speeding and
Absolutely.
still potential on safety.
Yeah. We should forward.
Cool,
I'm gonna
thanks.
forward you that.
Yeah, because we're not
It's
gonna
actually
take
on
a
the webpage.
21, we're not gonna make a
No.
10-mile-an-hour speed limit. Yeah, but there's
I'll send you.
wonderful, thank you.
Yeah, so I think you're referring to the traffic policy. We do have that in place, and it does take into account other extenuating factors.
Yep.
Other than the speed. Okay, thank you.
Yep, thanks, Chief.
And then, public comment, any public comment online?
No.
None from the room. And so I'll take a motion to adjourn that.
So moved.
Second, thank you. All in favor?
Cindy?
Oh, yeah.
Meeting is adjourned at 10:59 a.m.